A blind black man gets pulled over by the police, and what starts as a routine stop quickly escalates. But it's what happens next that catches everyone by surprise. His daughter's bold response shakes the entire department to its core. Today we uncover a true story of racial profiling, resilience, and a daughter's unexpected courage that changes everything. If compelling stories like this matter to you, subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss more real-life stories. It's a quiet late afternoon in a typical suburban neighborhood. The air feels still, almost serene, with the sun casting a warm orange glow over the streets. You can hear the gentle rustle of leaves swaying slightly in a mild breeze. This is a familiar place for him, a place of routine and comfort where the sounds guide him just as well as any sign could. Steady taps of his white cane echo against the sidewalk, each tap deliberate and confident. The world may be dark for him, but his mind is sharp, and his spirit is unbroken. He's a man in his 50s with quiet strength. His face is lined with experiences of hardship and resilience, yet his words are soft, measured, and wise. He's lived a life marked by challenges, ones that come not just from his blindness but from a society that often sees his skin color before his character. Through it all, he's endured with grace, finding ways to overcome the barriers that others place in front of him. He knows this neighborhood well, the familiar sounds of children playing in the distance, a dog barking a few houses down, and the gentle hum of cars passing by. But today, there's an uneasiness in the air, subtle but real. A police cruiser sits idling at the end of the block, its engine humming low. The sight might be ordinary to most, but here it feels different. As the man continues along, tapping his cane against the pavement, he's unaware of the pair of watchful eyes inside that vehicle. It's as if the calm of the evening is holding its breath, waiting. The officers inside the car remain still, observing his every move, the radio static in their car breaking the silence from time to time. But that peace is about to be shattered by an unexpected encounter. The tension lingers, not yet fully realized but palpable, like a storm forming on the horizon. There's an invisible line being drawn, and as the man steps closer to the parked cruiser, a sense of foreboding takes hold. The officers exchange words quietly, their intensity hard to read from a distance. In that moment, it's unclear who will make the first move, but there's a feeling that something is about to happen. Something that will change everything for the man, the officers, and the quiet street that had seemed so ordinary just minutes before. The man's daily routine is simple yet meaningful. It usually begins with a walk or a short drive around the neighborhood, often accompanied by his daughter. These walks are not just about moving through space. They're his way of feeling connected to the world. For him, every step is a reminder of the independence he's fought hard to maintain despite his blindness. His daughter is a constant presence, always by his side. In her early 20s, she is fiercely protective of him. She knows how cruel the world can be, not just because of her father's disability, but also because of the color of their skin. Her eyes are wide open to the realities they face, and she's determined to challenge them. Bold and outspoken, she's the kind of person who stands her ground, especially when it comes to defending her father's dignity. She drives him to the store, guides him through the streets, and navigates a world that often feels indifferent, if not outright hostile, to his struggles. The man's demeanor is marked by patience and quiet determination. He's used to the inconveniences that come with his blindness, the need to ask for assistance, the stares from people who don't quite know how to interact with him, and the routine barriers that others take for granted, like crossing a busy street. But he handles it all with a calm acceptance. He's learned to pick his battles, having been worn down by countless instances of prejudice. Yet deep within, there's still a fire, a sense of dignity that remains unshaken no matter how many times he's been underestimated or mistreated. And then there's the darker side of his daily life. There have been moments when his disability wasn't the only thing that drew attention. His race did too. He remembers an afternoon when he and his daughter were walking home from the store. A police officer approached, asking where they were headed and why they were in the area, despite it being their own neighborhood. The questioning felt more like an accusation, leaving the man feeling both humiliated and powerless. His daughter, though furious, held her tongue, knowing that arguing would only escalate the situation. There was another time when he was pulled over while his daughter was driving. The officer seemed more interested in why a young black woman was behind the wheel of a nice car than in any actual traffic violation. When the daughter tried to explain that she was simply driving her father home, the officer's tone became dismissive. "Are you sure this is your car?" he'd asked. The man, sensing the tension, intervened in his usual calm manner. He'd simply said, "We just want to get home safely, officer." But even that simple statement was met with suspicion, as if his very existence was a threat. These minor run-ins with law enforcement have left marks on both father and daughter. For him, they serve as reminders of a system that seems designed to challenge him at every turn. For her, they fuel the anger and frustration she carries as a young black woman who has seen too many injustices, both big and small. While her father chooses a path of quiet resilience, she believes in speaking out, making noise, and pushing back. She knows that one day she may have to confront a situation where keeping silent simply won't be an option. And so, with every encounter, the tension builds, not just in their lives but in the story itself. The small, demeaning experiences, the invasive questions, and the unwanted attention all set the stage for what's to come. These past incidents aren't just memories. They're warnings that the worst is yet to happen, that the simmering injustice they've endured could soon reach a boiling point. There's a sense that things can't continue as they have. The man's patience may be limitless, but the system's aggression isn't. And while his daughter's words have been held back in the past, the next conflict might force her to unleash the full extent of her anger and determination. The stage is set, the characters are defined, and the tension is undeniable. But the real conflict is yet to unfold. It's an ordinary afternoon, the kind that feels routine, almost predictable. The father and daughter are in the car, with the daughter behind the wheel, guiding them home from a visit to a nearby store. They chat lightly, exchanging thoughts about everyday things, unaware of the storm about to unfold. But as they turn onto a familiar street, flashing red and blue lights appear in the rearview mirror. The daughter slows down, her expression tense but not unfamiliar with what's happening. The man remains calm as always. He's been here before, maybe too many times. He listens closely as his daughter pulls the car to the side of the road and puts it in park. Two police officers approach the car, their steps brisk, their expressions serious. The daughter rolls down the window, ready to explain, but the officers barely let her speak before one of them demands the father's ID. Confused but compliant, he calmly explains, "Officer, I am visually impaired. I don't have a driver's license. My daughter is driving." He speaks clearly, making sure his tone is respectful. The officer, however, is unimpressed. "Step out of the vehicle," he commands coldly. The man's voice remains steady. "I'm not the driver, sir." He tries again, hoping reason will prevail. But instead of understanding, he's met with a rising wave of hostility. "Get out of the car," one officer shouts, his voice growing louder, the demand more forceful. The daughter tries to intervene, explaining once again that her father is blind and not in control of the vehicle. "This is wrong," she insists, her voice carrying a mix of frustration and urgency. But the officers aren't listening. They seem to have already decided how this encounter will end. Passers-by start to notice the commotion. Some slow down to watch, Others pull out their phones. The situation quickly becomes chaotic. The officers continue to shout orders as the man tries to comply as best he can. "I can't see," he repeats, his tone a mix of calm and distress. His daughter, seated next to him, is growing more anxious by the second. "Please," she pleads. He's not resisting, he's just trying to understand what you want from him. But her words only seem to agitate the officers further. Their aggressive stance is unwavering, as if any sign of compliance is merely an excuse to escalate their approach. The situation spirals further when one officer opens the driver's side door and physically pulls the man out of the car. He stumbles, unsure of his footing, and his cane falls to the ground. He protests, "I'm not resisting." But the officer pays no mind, gripping the man's arm tightly, forcing him to the side of the car. The man's distress is evident. His breathing becomes heavier, and a mix of fear and pain shows on his face as he's roughly handled. His daughter is frantic now, shouting, "Let him go! He's not a threat." Her voice breaks, not from fear but from a deep-seated anger that's been building inside her for years. Realizing that words alone won't suffice, the daughter reaches for her phone and begins recording. "You're being filmed," she announces, her voice steady with resolve. Her hands may be trembling, but her determination is unshakable. "This is excessive force, and it's on camera," she says, making sure the officers hear her. The crowd that's gathered starts murmuring. Some are shouting words of support, others are recording the scene themselves. The officers glance at each other, seemingly uncertain for the first time. One officer tries to intimidate the daughter, stepping closer to her in warning. "Put the phone down, or you'll be arrested too." But she doesn't back down. In fact, her voice becomes even more assertive. "I know my rights," she declares, meeting the officer's gaze without flinching. "You're violating the Fourth Amendment, and you're engaging in unlawful detainment. My father has committed no crime, and you have no grounds to use force against him." There's a shift in the air, an unexpected turn. The officers pause, clearly taken aback by her words. The daughter's voice rings with authority, not just of someone pleading for fairness, but of someone who understands the law. That's when she reveals the twist that changes everything. "I'm a law student," she states, her voice clear and unwavering. "And what you're doing is not only unethical, it's illegal." The officers seem momentarily stunned, as if they weren't expecting a young black woman to wield such precise legal language. "This is wrongful detainment, and you're using excessive force against a blind man who has done nothing wrong." She continues, her words sharp and deliberate. The crowd's energy shifts from passive observation to active support, with some people shouting, "She's right," and others urging the officers to let the man go. The officers, now aware of the growing pressure, seem less certain of their actions. The man is still visibly shaken, but his daughter's courage and legal knowledge provide a strange sense of comfort amid the chaos. As more people gather, the officers start to back off, not wanting to create a scene that could spiral further out of control. The daughter's presence, her words, and the public's attention have turned what was once a one-sided power play into a confrontation with accountability. What was meant to be a simple act of intimidation has now become a pivotal moment. The officers face not just a father and daughter, but a crowd that demands justice and a woman whose words are as sharp as her sense of right and wrong. This was not the encounter that they expected. What started as a routine traffic stop has taken a turn, one that neither the police nor the father and daughter could have predicted. But this is far from over. The consequences of this moment will ripple outward, impacting not just the father and daughter but the entire community and department. And it's all because one young woman refused to stay silent in the face of injustice. The situation is teetering on the edge. One of the officers steps toward the daughter, his voice low and threatening. "Put the phone down now, or I'll arrest you for interfering," he warns, his tone filled with intimidation. But the daughter doesn't waver. She holds her phone steady, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Do what you have to do," she replies, her voice strong and unwavering. "But know that everyone is watching. This isn't just between us anymore." Her words resonate through the crowd, which has grown larger and more vocal. Passers-by, initially curious, have become witnesses, and some have started recording as well. Murmurs ripple through the group. Why are they treating him like this? She's right. They can't do that. It's no longer just a confrontation between the officers and the family. It's becoming a public spectacle. The officers sense the shift, their authority suddenly feeling less absolute. They look around, aware that eyes and cameras are on them from every angle, capturing their every move. And then, almost as if on cue, a bystander shouts, "We're live streaming this." The declaration rings through the air, sending a shockwave through the scene. The officers exchange glances, their aggressive demeanor momentarily cracking. The tension peaks as it becomes clear this is now live on social media, reaching far beyond the street, beyond the neighborhood. The implications sink in. This moment can't be erased or controlled. It's unfolding for thousands, maybe even millions, in real time. Meanwhile, the man stands by the side of the car, visibly shaken. His breathing is heavy, and his face reflects a mix of fear and exhaustion. He's bent slightly, his body tense from the rough handling. He's a proud man, and this public humiliation cuts deep. "I don't want trouble," he manages to say, his voice raw with vulnerability. It's a simple plea, yet it carries the weight of decades of discrimination and hardship. The crowd's murmurs grow louder, shifting from passive concern to active outrage. "Leave him alone," one person yells, while another shouts, "He's done nothing wrong." The daughter, however, stands as a pillar of strength. Her anger is palpable. Her eyes are filled with both fire and tears, a mix of rage and helplessness. But she channels it into something more courageous. "You're violating his rights," she yells, addressing the officers directly, her voice carrying a kind of moral clarity that cuts through the chaos. "You can't treat him like this just because he's black and blind." The crowd responds with a roar of agreement, emboldened by her words. It's no longer just her fight. It's become a collective demand for justice. The officers, caught between the crowd's anger and the daughter's legal assertions, are visibly unnerved. One officer grips his handcuffs, as if to maintain some semblance of control, but he hesitates, realizing the situation has escalated beyond his expectations. The other officer, unsure of how to proceed, mutters into his radio, trying to decide whether to call for backup or de-escalate the encounter. It's a moment of indecision, a pause that's as telling as it is tense. The man's dignity, the daughter's bravery, and the officer's authority are colliding in this heated emotional showdown, with no clear end in sight. The intensity of the moment reaches its breaking point. The man, still trembling, reaches out blindly for his daughter's hand. "I'm here, Dad," she says, her voice softening for the first time. It's a rare, tender moment amidst the chaos, a reminder of why they're standing their ground. The crowd falls silent for a brief second, moved by the raw humanity of the scene. In that moment, it's clear that this is about more than just one incident. It's about a much bigger struggle. It's about the rights of a black man to be treated with dignity, the right of a blind man to be respected, and the right of a daughter to defend her father's humanity. The crowd's empathy is palpable. Some have tears in their eyes, others have clenched fists, and all are bound by a shared sense of injustice. The air is thick with emotions that words can barely contain. Anger at the officer's behavior, fear for the man's safety, and admiration for the daughter's bravery. It's not just a confrontation. It's a symbol of a larger reality, one where systemic racism and disability discrimination often collide. In this moment, the viewers, both those on the street and those watching online, are forced to grapple with the reality of what's unfolding before them. It's a powerful scene that cuts deep into the heart of anyone who has ever felt powerless in the face of authority, anyone who has ever had to fight for basic human rights. The tension hangs heavy, the stakes higher than ever. The officers are visibly shaken, unsure whether to continue their aggressive approach or step back. The daughter, however, is resolute. She's no longer just defending her father. She's challenging a system that has allowed moments like this to happen for far too long. As the climax reaches its peak, it's clear that this is no ordinary encounter. It's a defining moment that will leave a lasting impact, not just on the man and his daughter, but on everyone who has witnessed it. The question now is, how will it end? Just as the tension threatens to boil over, backup officers arrive on the scene. The sirens are loud, their presence commanding, but this time it's not to escalate the conflict. It's to bring some sense of control back to the situation. As the new officers approach, they're met with the sight of a crowd that's no longer just observing but actively standing against what's unfolding. There's a mix of defiance and demand in the air, and it's clear that things have already gone too far. One of the backup officers quickly steps forward, assessing the scene with a more level-headed approach. He addresses the original officers in a low, urgent voice, making it clear that the higher-ups have been alerted. In the midst of the confusion, a call comes through on the radio. The order is clear: release the man immediately. The daughter's relentless advocacy, combined with the growing crowd's pressure and the live stream's reach, has forced the department to act swiftly. The original officers hesitate, clearly unhappy with how things have turned, but with cameras on them and orders from above, they have no choice but to comply. One of them steps forward, unlocking the man's handcuffs. It's a small gesture, but it feels monumental, a moment of reluctant accountability. The man, still shaky, stands upright, adjusting his clothes with dignity. His daughter rushes to his side, steadying him. "Are you okay, Dad?" she asks, her voice full of both relief and lingering anger. He nods slowly, taking a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. Then something unexpected happens. A senior officer arrives, clearly sent to address the growing scandal. His demeanor is serious but not aggressive. He walks directly to the man and his daughter, pausing for a moment before speaking. "On behalf of the department, I apologize for what happened here," he says, his tone surprisingly genuine. The events of that day may have started as just one encounter on a quiet street, but their impact goes far beyond the immediate moment. It's not simply about what happened between a blind black man, his courageous daughter, and two aggressive officers. It's about the deeper systemic issues that allowed it to happen in the first place. Issues that require urgent change and the bold voices of those willing to confront them, no matter the risk. This story is a reminder of a broader struggle, one that continues every day in different forms across the country. It's about resilience in the face of injustice and the courage to demand dignity, respect, and accountability. And most importantly, it's a story of hope. Hope that enough voices can eventually shift the balance toward fairness and equality. It's not just about one encounter. It's about a system that needs change and the brave individuals who demand it. What do you think it takes to challenge an entire system?